moving quickly, another handoff to Rankin. Rankin finds a hole, he's at the 30, makes it to the 20, he's got one man to beat. Rankin walks into the end zone. Into the backfield, Braden Wright looks over top, he's going to try to find a man, he's got Alec Tatum. Tatum bobbles it, but he's in the end zone. What a connection between Braden Wright and Alec Tatum. Handoff to Rankin, Rankin right up the middle, and he's in the end zone for a Bearcat touchdown.
That the views expressed in today's show do not reflect the views of KZLX, KNWT, or Northwest Missouri State University. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
A little bit to volleyball now as this team continues to roll. Sit 9-1 overall this year, 11th in the country now. And last week we talked about the Missouri Western game. Then they had to travel last Saturday to play Central Missouri, the number 12 team in the country, in Warrensburg. The Bearcats win that game and now sit tied at the top of the MIAA, number 11 in the country. This team is rolling, and they look really good.
Yeah, they look scary good. And, you know, we were so highly touted on this matchup with UCM because we know that the MIAA is one of the premier divisions right now for volleyball in D2. And going into that game, UCM was their first MIAA test that had some very high significance to it. And then you go and look at the stats. They evened out in kills, so they were very aggressive as far as that end of play. But there were a lot more errors on the UCM side, 28 for UCM, 17 for Northwest. And then the blocks, I think, is what really stands out to me. Northwest played well with the net. They didn't force a lot of plays to try and get Maddie Aarons to set up players for kills. They really stuck right at the net, and they prevented UCM from making those plays. And that's why you saw Northwest, really go out and dominate. When you win 3-1 over a number 12 team in the country, looks pretty convincing. And now they basically swapped spots with them, and they're at number 11. So, yes, I agree. They're looking very, very good.
And you mentioned Maddie Aarons. She is leading this team in assists with 434. The next highest is 23. That is a substantial number, and it's crazy to think that this team is relying on one player because they're really not. It just so happens that Aarons is the one that's facilitating all of these other players to come in and get the stats that they have. We have 3 players over 100 kills this season, and then Jaden Ferguson sitting at 61, so another player that's getting close to that century mark. There are so many good key players for this Northwest team. It's hard to see what side of the ball they're going to try and attack you from because on each side of the court, they have some strong hitters.
She's the point guard of this offense, and then you have just such deadly weapons on either side with Hallie Sidney, of course, being one of them. But I think it kind of all goes back to head coach Amy Worth. She's doing something right with this team right now. Coming into the season, losing one of the best players this program has ever seen in Maddie Bruder. And they haven't skipped a beat. If anything, they've gotten better. And it's incredible to watch. You talk about a team that's 4-0 against ranked opponents this season. And that's going to hopefully continue when you look at the rest of the MIAA because it doesn't get any easier with Washburn, of course, still being there. And then, of course, you have Central Missouri. And all these teams are Nebraska Carneys always seems to somehow win this conference. This is going to be a really fun volleyball season.
As Northwest Missouri State play tonight, they head to Pittsburgh, Kansas to take on the Gorillas there. That game at 6 p.m. tonight, and then tomorrow they will travel to Joplin to take on Missouri Southern at 1 p.m. Next weekend, 2 games that we'll have here on KZLX. They will come home for the second home game of the year. It's going to be odd to be 12 games into the season, and this will only be the second time we get to see this team at home. But Fort Hays State, they'll come to Maryville on Friday, a 6 p.m. start, and then Saturday, October 5th, the big matchup with UNK, the number 3 team in the country right now at 3 p.m. start time that Saturday. So Northwest Volleyball, I got to keep playing. You have a couple easier opponents record-wise coming up, but then you've got that UNK game here in 2 weeks. We're going to take a quick break here on the Weekend Sports Kickoff. When we get back, it's time to talk about some Chiefs football, what we saw in that Baltimore Ravens game, and then also talk about Chiefs Lions. Stick with us here on the Weekend Sports Kickoff.
You're listening to the Weekend Sports Kickoff on X106.
Welcome back to the Weekend Sports Kickoff here on X106 and streaming live on the KNWT Channel 8 Facebook page. Jacob Blair, Andrew Botwinick, Nolan Brooks, and Austin McNorton. And Andrew, you're going to have some personal experience with this one, but the Chiefs and the Ravens, probably the most impressive win of the Chiefs season thus far. They improved to 3-0, dropped the Ravens to 2-1. But in terms of the Chiefs, another game where they exploded in the second quarter and they did a little bit more than they did against the Ravens, but overall you look at what the Chiefs did, it's been all about quarter number 2 here in the last 2 games.
Yeah, and to go back off what you said, I was at the game last week, and I'll be at the game this week as well. The game last week,
thanks for making sure we knew that.
The game last week, though, against the Ravens, it was, you're right, they exploded for 23 points in the second quarter, and then they just kind of had 7 points, at a touchdown in the third, and then a field goal in the fourth quarter. They kind of just coasted is what it looked like, and then at the very end of this game, Baltimore decided they were like, hey, we're going to score here, we're going to score here, we're going to try and make some moves here, and it came down to an onside kick at the very end of this game, and the Chiefs had to get a first down after they recovered the onside kick. A very questionable onside kick as well from Justin Tucker, a different format than we're used to seeing that onside kick happen, a kind of a drop kick, but he botched the first one and got a second attempt out of it. But the Chiefs definitely started to coast a little bit there. You could see Andy Reid's philosophy of kind of getting a lead and sitting on his heels, kind of just waiting it out, seeing what's going to happen.
Do you like that kind of attitude, the conservative attitude from the Chiefs?
No.
Or would you rather see them put up 50 a game?
As a Chiefs fan, I'm sure Jacob can also attest this. I'm sure he's also going to reiterate the same thing that I'm about to say here, is that the Chiefs have went through years where we had Matt Castle. The Chiefs have had Matt Castle. They solely relied on Ryan Suckup to kick field goals. So every time they got down to within the 30-yard line, they would play conservative play calling, and they would be content with just getting 3 points. And then you'd see scores that are 21-7, but there were like 7 field goals. It was not, they never found the end zone. And now that we have Patrick Mahomes that can get into the end zone 50 times in a single season through the air, I would like to see him do that more often. I don't care if you're beating teams out in scores that are the Dolphins scores every single week. If the Chiefs can do that, I would like to see them do that.
There comes a point where when you're playing a good team, and the Ravens are a good team, I think right now they're the front runner for that division, but when you're playing good teams, you can't get up 30-13. That's enough, especially when you don't have the defense that can do that. The Chiefs' defense still isn't there. They played well in this game for 2.5, 3 quarters. And then they let the Ravens run the ball down the field, and the Ravens got back in the game. We can get to Harbaugh's play calling here in a minute because that was bad. I think there's no other way around the decision-making by the Ravens coach. But if you're the Chiefs, you get up 30-13, go score 40 points. Don't make it a game. It was weird being a Chiefs fan, sitting there watching the Ravens come back and not really be all that worried. But it is a problem that this game ended up a 1-score game because the scoreboard does not match the game. This was a 2-score, easy, possibly 3-score beatdown from the Chiefs that ended up at a 1-score game because the Chiefs just played a second quarter, which I think we figured it up. It's like 57-6 Chiefs right now, and the second quarter of play this season. It was 6-6 in that quarter against Jacksonville, and then it was 28-0 against the Raiders, 23-0 against the Ravens in just the second quarter. And if you can do that at any point in time, go score some points. And they did that a little bit this week in the third quarter. Mm-hmm. But you've got to keep going, and if the game ends up 41-21, it's got to be that. You can't let teams come back, because if things went right for the Ravens and they were throwing up miracles and prayers that somehow were falling, Lamar Jackson's throwing across the field further than I've really seen anyone else throw across the field from one sideline to the other, and players are coming down with footballs. You can't keep teams in games by kind of laying back, hand the ball off 3 times and punting.
And to echo off what you said about it not really being like bothering you that the Ravens scored and the Chiefs were only up a possession or two, that's kind of how it was in the atmosphere there at Arrowhead. I know that everybody got quiet whenever the Ravens scored, but as soon as the kickoff happened and Patrick Mahomes walked back out on the field, everybody just kind of had a sigh of relief saying, hey, we still have the potential to put up some points real quick here. And that's exactly what we saw. We saw Mecole Hardman get that 87-yard or however long it was quick pass, and he just immediately ran down the field, broke coverage and everything, and was there in the end zone within 13 seconds, just a 2-play drive.
And I want to really, and I mentioned this earlier, but talk about the Ravens real quick and Coach Harbaugh and some of those decisions. Because you go back, you look at this game, there were 6 points left on the board. Going for it on fourth downs and field goal range, going for 2-point conversions all game. To me, you've got one of the better kickers in the league. In Justin Tucker, send him out on the field and get points. I understand you're like, oh, we got to keep up with the Chiefs, but you take those points, yes, the game's going to be played different, so this is kind of a naive statement, but you just won the football game. If you send your field goal kicker, assuming he makes them.
And he's like the best field goal kicker in the league.
Right. And you're keeping him off the field to a point where he was like, can I go kick a field goal, ran out onto the field, and then they pulled him back. Went for it on fourth down. You leave points on the board, and when you have empty possessions against the Chiefs, it makes it difficult where now you feel like you've got to chase points. Where if you just get the points, the Chiefs go conservative. The Ravens, that's a much different game if they just put their field goal kicker out on the field.
And I think part of it, too, is Harbaugh kind of has this little kid syndrome to where he scores, gets to 6 points. He's sending the unit out there to kick the field goal, the extra point. The Chiefs line up offsides. It's offsides. They say half the distance to the goal. Harbaugh immediately sees half the distance to a goal on an extra point as, ooh, a piece of candy. I'm going to take the 2 points instead of 1 point. We're going to be up on the Chiefs. They have to go for 2 to tie it up. And if they didn't get it in that situation, so they're only up 6 points now. The rest of this game is Harbaugh trying to play catch-up still, and that's why it escalated so quickly, because I get what you're saying is, yes, you send out Justin Tucker, but at the same time, you're playing catch-up against the Chiefs in a game where they're scoring 7.
Mark Ingram quoted that they wanted to be aggressive. I mean...
But here's the thing. I'm going to go to 2 different situations. There was one early on in this game. They went for it on fourth down on their own side of the field. They didn't get it, and now you're giving Patrick Mahomes all he's got to get is 38 yards to get a touchdown.
So you think they should have punted it?
Yes. I understand that Mahomes can score at any point in time, but you don't go for it on fourth down in your own territory. If you're on the 40-yard line, you're like, we've got to get touchdowns, that makes more sense. If we're playing aggressive, we got to get touchdowns, but on your own side of the football, it's not a 4th and inches. It was a 4th and 2 or 3. You go for it, you don't get it. Now Patrick Mahomes is going to walk out onto the field. You've got Harrison Butker. You've got Harrison Butker, who's a really good kicker in his own right. You're already basically in field goal position, so there's at least the chance at 3 points just because you didn't get it. The other one is they were down 11. They went for it, a 2-point conversion on a touchdown as they were trying to come back into this game. How does that help you? That was the most mind-boggling one to me. And the Ravens trying to come back is you're down 11, you kick a field goal, you're down 10. Now it's a touchdown and a field goal to tie the game. The clock's winding down. You go for 2, I guess a touchdown and a field goal wins you the game. But now if you don't get the extra point on your next touchdown because you went for 2, now you're sitting down just like they were. You're down 5, and instead of needing a field goal to tie the game, you need a touchdown to win it. That one, to me, of being aggressive, and then there's that one where it's just mind-boggling to me.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree with that. I'm not going to echo anything else that you just said because you basically took the words out of my mouth. The play calling down the stretch was definitely questionable, but I see why Harbaugh initially wanted to pull Justin Tucker from the field in that first quarter score. The rest of it at that point, like I said earlier, is he's just trying to catch up. He's just saying, hey, Chiefs are scoring 7 at a time. We need to try and get 8 at a time because statistically, I'm not a math major, but I'm pretty sure that means that they won the game.
If you get those points.
Yes, yeah,
and
if you get those points.
That's the issue is, and then you can get into a metrics and analytic game where you're like, well, what's the percentages of 2-point conversions to the percentages of these longer PATs? The thing is, put points on the board. I understand being aggressive. If it's not going right, if your 2-point conversion plays aren't working early and they weren't, kick field goals. Because if you do that, especially late in the game, you say, we were going for points, it's not working. Instead of being down 11, you're down 10 because they score a touchdown, they get down 5, now they've got to go for 2, they didn't get it again. And then you end up in a situation where you have to score a touchdown to win the game. But back to the other point is they shouldn't have had that opportunity if the Chiefs would just keep scoring points and finish a game.
And the real question is coming into this week is Matt Prater going to kick field goals this week? Is he going to kick extra points against the Lions? Is he going to go in, or are they going to say, we saw what happened with the Ravens. We know how to stop it. We know how to score. We're going to kick extra points and all this.
We'll see. I think it would be interesting to see if this was just a tactic from the Ravens against the Chiefs, which on that end, if the Chiefs have that much pull with the rest of the league, that the rest of the league is that worried that you're going to make weird play calls trying to chase points, that should be a concern for everyone else. If the Ravens this is the only way we can win. Welcome back to the weekend sports kickoff here on X106 and streaming live on KNWT Channel 8's Facebook page. Jacob Blair, Andrew Botwinick, Nolan Brooks, and Austin McNorton with you. We're going to talk sports again. Get back to that. And it's time for Off My Rocker. And Austin, it's been a while since you've been on for this segment.
Man, I was going to say that's like the second time I ever
let me
promo.
Let me catch you up with what's happened. Nolan has reserved the right to go last every week.
His are the craziest, I'm assuming.
These are the craziest. He's earned that right.
Memphis was going to win the NBA
That
Finals.
is still the semester winner here.
That's why he goes last.
So
for that take,
Sam has done a really good job in that seat, bringing some good stuff.
Sam has
So-
brought some fire.
Some like crazy hot stuff or accurate stuff?
some stuff that actually gets
Both.
us to think about it,
Yeah,
at
both.
least.
Okay.
So
Okay.
what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with you.
All right.
Throw you back on that chair. See what you got for us this week.
All right. So, with the latest news that has surfaced regarding the University of Kansas Jayhawks,
Why did I know this was where you were gonna go?
so I think with the biggest news with this is that this is something that hasn't happened in quite some time for Kansas. And that is not being number one in the recruiting class. And I think they could drop down with if these suspensions or allegations all prove to actually penalize Kansas, they will drop down to below 5 in terms of recruiting in the Big 12. That means Texas Tech will jump ahead of them, Oklahoma State will jump ahead of them, Kansas State will jump ahead of them, Texas will jump ahead of them, and potentially even Oklahoma will jump ahead of them.
What
In terms of recruiting class, because they are currently number one right now in the Big 12, and they have been number one in the Big 12 for probably the last decade.
Right, Kansas. They get a lot of the one and done players. You get some of those. You also, every team's got people that stay, but you get a lot of one and dones. One and dones, what are they there to do? They're there to win and leave.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't have the opportunity, and what are they there to do? They have grown up watching March Madness. If they don't have the opportunity to play in that because sanctions do come down, we don't know that yet. So I think you have to preface this on if sanctions do fall on the university, yes, this does happen.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think.
If they don't, then you're at a situation where the players don't care, and Kansas will be fine. So I think you're right there.
The Georgia Tech thing really helped me make this decision.
I don't think you're crazy because I think if they do come down, these one and done players, I think they're players at this point that wouldn't have gone to Kansas prior will go to Kansas. They'll still be good. So I think it's possible they stay in that top 5 because it still will be a good program to go to in terms of player development.
Yeah.
But you don't have the chance to play postseason basketball if that were to happen, and that's going to take some of those players that they know they're only going to be there for a year. They want to go play on those floors that say March Madness, so they're going to go to a different school.
I think that's a little bit outlandish to say that they'll be fifth. I think that you're still playing for Bill Self. You're still playing for Kansas. It's not like Kansas is going to get a postseason ban or something, and all of a sudden none of their games get televised. None of the stats for their games come out. This is still a Kansas Jayhawks team that the NBA looks at and says, Bill Self knows how to coach these players. We're going to take their players regardless if they're playing in the March Madness tournament. Granted, I'm sure the players do, as Jacob said, want to go and win these games. They want to be successful while they're in college in the short span that they are there. But they're not going to go away from Kansas to just because of that. I think.
Wouldn't you rather play for a team, though, like Kansas State, like Texas Tech, who's had success not only in the Big 12, but also in the NCAA tournament and have had pretty successful coaches? Chris Beard is probably one of the most respected coaches in all of college basketball right now.
But if I'm a player that's a top 10, top 20 caliber player where you're coming in with all of this high notoriety, I want to play for the best team that's going to give me the best opportunity to go to the next level. College, at maximum, is only a 4-year place to be. From that point on, you're either going to go to the pros or you're going to go somewhere else. You're going to go play in the G League or you're going to go to the pros. And if you're getting coached by a different school, I'm not discrediting what those programs have done, because Texas Tech and K-State are very, very well-respected programs in the Big 12. But to say that KU is going to drop to below fifth in there, I would say third. I could see third, okay. But fifth, I think fifth is a little bit too over. But I like where that went, though.
Okay.
The
resident Jayhawk.
You are off your rocker for saying that they'll drop below 5. 5 seems... Think about who Kansas has brought into that program over the last couple of years. Granted, Texas Tech had a very good team this last year. Very, very good. But KU is one of the top recruiting classes in the nation every year for a reason. To drop below 5.
But now if potentially they're not playing for anything.
Okay.
That didn't bother Ohio State whenever they had their postseason in football. They still went undefeated that year. It's just players only went there for a year or two. Maybe for a 1 year they dip a little bit lower than they're used to.
I just think 5 is too low. I could see them dropping maybe a couple, but no more than that. 5 is way too low, especially in the Big 12. Now, when Buddy Hield or Trae Young were around in the Big 12, maybe. Not now. Those guys aren't around anymore. Jarrett Culver's gone from Texas Tech. All those guys aren't there anymore. I don't see them dropping below 5. Not happening.
So did I live up to how well Sam's been doing?
Yes.
All right.
Good job.
Yes.
Not happening. Off your rocker.
So and now we're going to hear what Nolan has to say, and we're probably not going to have to be able. We're not, based on what Nolan does. We're not. There's going to be like this period where you don't hear anything for like a good 4 or 5 seconds, and that's because we can't breathe when he's done saying this.
I'm excited. I have.
It's like a story.
That is right. Austin has not been able to experience.
I've
these
experienced
each week.
the Memphis one, and that was pretty great.
It's honestly like every time
it's been like that every time.
It's like every time he gives one, it's a story. So like he'll have like a storyline behind it where it's a paragraph.
Here's my question, Nolan, in your own opinion, does this challenge your Memphis Grizzly one?
No.
Okay.
Not even close. This might be my most tame one yet.
Which still could mean it's crazier than the rest of ours.
True. But I promise this is not too bad. Okay? Okay, I promise. Aaron Rodgers is going to win the MVP of the NFL this year. Aaron Rodgers right now has over 1,000 yards passing. I understand it's early, and he doesn't have as many touchdowns as Patrick Mahomes has. But he's not that far behind in yards. Green Bay looks good this year. I think this is the revamp of Aaron Rodgers, and he will win the MVP of the NFL.
This is weird this week because you've been deemed off your rocker. I've been deemed off my rocker. Austin's been deemed off his rocker, and Nolan is firmly planted in his rocker this week.
Yeah, would you build yours out of oak this week? What the heck? It's
Yeah.
sturdy as heck.
I mean, I just kind of reevaluated who I was before I came into this.
You had a nice little spiritual awakening, and you said,
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers, MVP caliber player.
I meditated a little bit and said, Rodgers, or something wild like that. I don't remember. It was a
I think
wild
it's
time,
possible, though, because Patrick won it last year. Was that when he had Nagy still, or was that with Bieniemy in his first year? I'm pretty sure it was with Bieniemy in his first year. Rodgers has Matt LaFleur in his first year. He's got a new offense that it looks like, aside from yesterday, he's been able to move the ball fairly well. I think the big thing is if the Packers go 13-3, 12-4, if they stick somewhere around there, he's a top 5 caliber player, and he's in the argument to win it. Now, if he comes down with it, I don't know. But if the Packers go 8-8, 9-7, he's not going to win it. They have to play a 13-3 or 12-4 record, win that division in that tough NFC North.
I think you're exactly right with playing in such a